Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story where a devoted wife stands up for her husband against unfair family criticism. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Snapped at my in-laws for saying my husband ruined his life. My 36-year-old female husband, 36-year-old male, comes from a family of athletes. They put him in boxing as a kid. He was talented and he suffered a lot of pressure from his family. They wanted him to become professional, but my husband never wanted that. In high school, things got worse for him as the school's coaches were brutal, and the attention he received from promoters and outside coaches led his family to put more pressure on him. The relationship with his family went south, and he informed them he was going to university and giving up boxing for good. Not true, the boxing part. I met him a month before we started high school, and we've been together ever since. When he was 30, his family contacted him to try to fix their relationship. Their relationship is decent, the same with me. Now, we took our children on Sunday to visit them. Sister-in-law and her husband were talking about one of my nephews learning to play the piano and that he's good for his age. Then mother-in-law said, and, quote, "Be careful, you don't want to encourage him only for him to quit and ruin his life as my husband's name." It seemed like mother-in-law forgot I was there and they went silent. My husband was out buying some things with his father and his other two brothers-in-law. I was calm and asked her how he ruined his life. His sisters got involved and said that's not what mother-in-law meant, and I wouldn't understand. I replied, "No, I don't understand. I don't understand why you wanted to live through him, why you never listened to him, why you never accepted what he wanted, why you didn't let him be, why you think he ruined his life. I don't get it. If you think it's because I don't know how talented he was, you're wrong, because I was there even when you abandoned him. It wasn't for nothing that he got 2 scholarships and people were after him. I'd understand if he didn't do anything with his life, but that's not the case. He has a degree, an amazing career, built 2 different businesses, is a great father and husband. He's more successful than all of you combined. Please tell me how he ruined his life or what part I don't understand." I got silence. I took our children and left. I texted my husband that I was going home. He arrived shortly after and told him what happened, and he's not mad. To be honest, this is the first time I heard this type of comments, and I pretty much blew the relationship he has with his family, and apparently also caused issues with his sister's husbands because they had a different version of why my husband was estranged. Edit. I reacted on instinct and kind of regretted, but my husband reassured me that it was fine. He would have done the same thing for me. Which I know. I should have been clear. Mother-in-law says he ruined his life because he wasted the chance to be recognized and famous, something they always longed for and couldn't achieve on their own. My husband stopped competing once he finished university and not after high school. He had to do it so he could maintain his scholarship. The children weren't present when I exploded. They were outside playing. His sisters lied to their husbands about the reason why my husband was estranged. They put the blame entirely on him and downplayed what they did. My husband says that over the years he felt something was off, so he's not surprised they haven't changed their opinion of him and that they were just faking it to gain access to our kids. Small update. Early today when we dropped the kids off at school, his sisters' husbands were there and wanted to hear my husband's version. We went to have breakfast and he told them everything. From their reaction, it was clear that their wives were still downplaying the whole thing. According to one of them, his wife is starting to display the same traits as mother-in-law. So yeah. We agreed to talk on Saturday to plan how we're going to move forward with our children. They go to the same school and are very close. We don't want to disrupt their relationship. As for his parents, we're going to talk to them on Saturday to let them know how their relationship with our children and us is going to be from now on. Good job having your husband's back. I'm sure the little guy that lives inside of him was so happy someone finally had his back. And our second story. Bartender's petty revenge on a queue jumper. A few years ago, I was going to see a few friends for a drink. We'd arranged to meet in a local pub, but some of them said they'd get there a little early to watch the football. As a few of us weren't really into football, we said we'd meet them later on. Cue later on. I got to the pub and went to get a drink. It wasn't overly busy, but there was only one bartender, so there was a bit of a delay at the bar. Found a spot at the bar and waited my turn. There were a couple of guys waiting to my right and a bit of a gap to my left to another group who had drinks in hand and weren't ordering. As the bartender walked in front of me, he asked who was next. I nodded vaguely to my right, and off he went to serve the other guys. A few minutes later, a girl, probably barely old enough to drink, stood next to me. You know that feeling when you instantly know someone's going to be rude? I got that feeling straight away. She stood at the bar, arm outstretched, card in hand, not even bothering to look over to anybody else who stood at the bar. When the bartender then asked these guys who was next, she shouted across, "Yeah, 2 passion fruit martinis and a pina colada." Remember I said she didn't bother to look at any of us? Well, that was probably a good decision, as I turned to look at the other guys, and they were all staring daggers at her. The bartender took her order and began mixing the drinks. Whilst doing so, he looked over at these guys and shot a subtle wink at them. The bartender finished making the drinks and put them on the bar, out of reach of the young lady. He went to the terminal, pressed a few buttons, and said, "Okay, that'll be $186.14. The girl said, wait, what?" Quick as a flash, the bartender replied, "There was a round going, the last order was paying the bills. Are you not with these guys?" The girl replied, "Oh, no, I'm just paying for these drinks, thanks." The bartender's reply was very dry, "So you weren't next in line then." He then turned to the other guy stood next to me. Who was next? The queue resumed as intended. When the guy standing next to me got served, he pointed at me and said, "This girl's next." At no point in these exchanges did any of the orders come anywhere near the value of the round. As I got my drinks, I remember it was under $5 for 2 ciders, and paid, quietly said, "Nicely done," to the bartender as I did, to which he gave me a knowing smile. I headed back to our table and shared what had happened with my friends. Whilst doing so, some of the guys at the bar looked over to see us staring in their general direction. To my surprise, a few of them waved, with some of my friends waving back. One of my friends explained, "Oh, we were standing at the bar earlier watching the footy with those guys. They're all our team's fans too. Bartender's a fan too. He's sound." The girl was stood there for another 10 minutes waiting to pay for her drinks. She spent the time studying a menu, assumedly not wanting to look at anybody else at the bar. I'm not sure if it's a thing in the UK, but I would have given the bartender a very generous tip on my next round for a move like that. And our last story. Recently found out I'm paying for my neighbor's electricity. My girlfriend and I recently moved to a small 2-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor of a 2-apartment house. We were excited to settle into our new home with our little girl. Everything seemed great except for one thing. We quickly noticed that our electric bill was absolutely sky high. We're talking $325 a month for our tiny apartment. At first we thought there was a mistake, or maybe we were using too much energy somehow. But that didn't make sense for the size of the place. Our downstairs neighbors, a family of 4, casually mentioned in conversation that their bill was only about $80, gas included. The difference between their bill and ours was insane, so we called the electric company to come check things out. When the service guy arrived, he shut off our power for inspection. That's when our downstairs neighbor casually said, "Oh yeah, a bunch of our stuff is probably hooked up to your electric box. We noticed when we first moved in." Wait, what? Turns out more than half of their apartment was wired to our electrical box. Our bill was so high because we were paying for part of their electric usage, and they had just been going along with it the whole time. Annoyed but trying to keep calm, I immediately went to talk to the landlord. When I explained what was going on, they got defensive right away. Landlord: "It's probably just a few lights and an outlet, nothing major. You're making a big deal out of nothing." Me: "Our electric bill is over $325 a month. That's more than triple what they're paying downstairs. This is not just a few lights. We're paying for their usage, and that's not fair." Landlord: "Well, I'm not going to reimburse you for that. If it's really an issue, call the electric company to fix it. But I don't think this is my problem." After this conversation, it became clear that the landlord wasn't going to help, so we called the electric company again to fix the wiring, but of course that wasn't free either. We had to pay out of pocket to correct an issue we didn't even cause. Frustrated, I decided to contact local code enforcement to see if they could help us hold the landlord accountable. Unfortunately, they weren't much help either. The inspector I spoke to seemed uninterested in the whole situation and basically told me to take it to small claims court if I wanted any action. So that's exactly what we did. Update. We filed a small claims lawsuit against the landlord, gathering all the evidence we had, pictures of the electric bill, proof of the miswiring, and even a couple of text messages from the neighbors admitting they knew about the situation. When we finally had our day in court, the landlord came in looking smug as if they thought this would blow over easily. The judge asked for our side of the story first. Me. Your Honor, we've been paying for our downstairs neighbor's electricity for months without our consent or knowledge. The landlord refused to reimburse us even after we discovered that their apartment is hooked up to our electrical box. Judge. And how do you know that? Me. We had the electric company come out and inspect the property. They confirmed that more than half of the downstairs apartment is connected to our box. We even had to pay to get it fixed ourselves. The landlord tried to brush it off, saying it wasn't a big deal, but the judge wasn't buying it. After hearing both sides, the judge ruled in our favor. The landlord was ordered to reimburse us for the months of overpaid electricity and also for the cost of fixing the wiring. Judge. It's your responsibility as a landlord to ensure that each unit is billed fairly for their own utilities. You cannot expect your tenants to pay for someone else's usage. After the ruling, the landlord looked furious, but I didn't care. Justice had been served. We finally got reimbursed for the difference in the electric bills, and we no longer had to foot the bill for our neighbor's electricity. We're glad it's finally over. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.